Hi, Sarah. We're trying to get my laptop device into the space.
Oh, okay.
This is my backup device, but I can still attend off camera.
Okay. So I'm gonna. There we are. Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Tanya, you're going to share your screen, yes?
Yes, just give me one moment.
Absolutely. Okay. So we're going to put up the 5 questions, and we're going to spend, since we have about an hour and 20, about an hour and a half to meet together. What we'd like to do is go through each of, we'll give about 15 minutes for each of the questions, and then we'll leave a chunk of time at the end to just come back in case something else occurred to you. We could go back through any of the comments that you've shared as we go along. And we will drop in the chat the link to the both the online engagement form, which you're welcome to use if you think of anything after our session today. So I will put that in there for you. That's the online submission form. And if you have specific questions that we're not able to answer this evening, we would invite you to email. I'm going to put the email address into the chat as well. The email address that they are using for the ARP ESSER communications, and somebody from the department will be able to get back to you with specific answers. Okay, so now that we all have that, and I will drop those in again at the towards the end of our session when we, in case anything you need anything else. Okay.
Sarah, do you happen to have co-host privileges?
Do I happen to have co-host privileges?
Just because this sharing is disabled on my end. So if you could make me host, I might be able to share my screen.
Don't believe that I can do that as a co-host, but I can I'll put the screen up.
Yeah, that will definitely help. I think it's probably, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. I think it probably has to deal with the fact that I am over-prepared, so I have 2 devices. The cell phone seems to be the host, but that's not the one that has the PowerPoint, right? So just bear with us as we work through this together. So happy to see all of your beautiful faces. I'm not sure about you, but I've been in my pandemic bubble for about a year now. And so seeing adult faces after 6 o'clock is self-care. So thank you for those of you who are able to join us and share your screens.
Do you want me to share the PowerPoint? I have it open.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, somebody already shared. Okay.
I got it. We're all set.
Okay, Sarah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so as our commissioner and Sarah and Marjorie have shared, we are happy to have you here today so that we can gather your voices and really get your input as critical stakeholders, right? And this slide just gives you an overview of those 5 priority areas in which we are seeking your information for, right? Describing the state's current status and needs, safely reopening schools and sustaining their safe operations, maximizing state level funds to support our kiddos, supporting LEAs in planning for and meeting students' needs, and supporting the educator workforce, right? Next slide, please. All right, so we're gonna start with the first question. And so this is how we would like to do the flow, just because we have the multiple questions and it's very important to us that we get all of your feedback and we hear from every voice. So how we're gonna do it is we're gonna introduce the question and everyone is gonna have an opportunity to put their answer in the chat first. Once we see that we've collected all of the answers, and let's see, I see 15 participants, 3 of which are facilitators. So once we see that magic number of 12 for each answer, then we're gonna let you raise your hand. And if you would like to add more of your voice into the space, it'd be greatly appreciated. All right, can I get a thumbs up if we're ready to go? There we go, thank you so much. All right, so with our first question, right? Under that first priority area, right? Describing the state's current status and needs. So far, CSDE has prioritized providing support, guidance, and resources. They've addressed the digital divide by providing free access to digital resources, and they are committed to addressing the social and emotional needs of students, and they launched our Accelerate CT task force. So given this progress and the promising practices coming from CSDE in the last year, are there any other identified needs that you would like to mention? So for example, you can think about what other needs should be accounted for when it comes to student populations most greatly impacted by the pandemic. So you can respond to this question by just putting the number 1 and providing your response. And right now, there aren't any new comments in the chat box. So we're just looking to see that 12 messages have been dropped into the chat box. And after you've dropped your message into the chat box, if you are interested in speaking into the space, definitely use the reaction button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. It should allow you to access raise hand, and that we will work together with Sarah to have you unmuted so that you can speak your voice into the space. So I see we already have some responses coming in, which is really good. This is where we're really leaning on you for your innovation, your expertise from your corner of the state. Help us to understand their area. Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
I was just going to say, if this is not a question that you have a particular comment in, if you just want to drop no comment on this one, just so we know as we're kind of collecting things that we would expect to hear from you later.
I love that idea, Sarah. And if there's anyone who's having trouble accessing their chat box, please let us know and we'll try to help you troubleshoot it. So on my end, Sarah, I only see 1 response so far. Oh, they're coming in now.
Yes.
All right,
Flowing
just
in.
need to be patient, right? We're educators, so we got to be patient. We got to allow for the wait time. No problem.
Marnie has something to say.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that it was coming through. Typically, when I run breakout rooms, comments go to all other breakout rooms. So I just wanted to make sure that you all saw it, but I see that people do. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Marnie. Yeah, right? Just navigating. I think in this past year, we've learned to be acrobats when it comes to Zoom, right? If one feature is not working, we try to find the workaround. So thank you for bringing that into the space. And I actually like that they're responding, Sarah, so I don't have to bring those corny jokes that my kids taught me at lunchtime.
I only have one. I already used it, so.
The one that you spoke with your niece about today?
Yes.
Oh man, that was a good one. All right, we're about at 50%, almost there. About 75%. Keep them coming. All right, just waiting for 2 more. And again, remember, if you have something additional that you'd like to add and bring your voice into the space, please use the reaction button and raise your hand in Zoom so that we know to call on you. Almost there. I think we got the last one. Absolutely. All right. So I know we're a cozy group, right? We're about 16 of us. So I definitely did ask if you could raise your hand using the raise hand feature in Zoom. But if you're someone who doesn't see it, definitely unmute, bring your voice into the space. And if we happen to have a little bit of overlap, we'll work it out. No worries. Is there anything additional that someone would like to bring to the space? When we think about what are some unidentified needs that you would like to mention to CSDE?
Hi, this is Tamara Gloucester, and I know in my response I felt like was kind of broad. So is it okay to kind of provide
Elaborate, please.
elaboration? Okay. So one of the things I had mentioned was about the connection between adult education and our student population. So if there's ways in which CSDE could recognize that connection between that our adult ed students are some or if not most of the parents in our student body and in our district.
Very great point that you made there. Thank you so much for bringing that into the space, Tamara. Do we have anyone who would like to add on to her idea or discuss a different idea? Please unmute yourself to bring your voice into the space. I'm just looking through. Thank you, everyone who is able to show your screen.
Hello, hi, this is Unique Hendricks. How are you doing?
We're doing well. How are you, Unique?
I'm doing good. One of the things I was looking at with addressing the digital device with the school system, because I'm from Waterbury and the public school system is, with this pandemic, it really shows us, it's showing us that our students in the public school were at such a disadvantage because number one, they did not have the right digital devices, and the curriculum was not forward thinking to say in case of a pandemic or students learning virtually. So we weren't prepared for that. So that was a struggle definitely for us. So if this is something that we could focus on to making sure that students in urban public schools have that or have those devices. Sorry, I'm in the car.
No worries, and definitely get it. I'm at home right now with 3 beautiful Black unicorns. The youngest one, the 13-month-old who believes he's the leader. So at any point in time, one of them could prance across the screen and the show will go on. We will marvel at the unicorns, but the show will go on. So thank you so much for bringing that into the space, Shonique. I'm really talking about that digital divide, right? How do we match some of the technology resources with the curriculum? And if there's a mismatch, how are we going to start to address that? So thank you so much for bringing that into the space. Do we have any others? And I'm just glancing across the screen, Sarah, just to see if I can see anyone. Yvonne, I see your hand raised, and then Barbara. Go ahead, Yvonne. Unmute yourself and bring your voice into the space. I'm going to try to help, but it's not letting me. I think I need your help, Sarah. It's not letting me help to request her to unmute.
I did request for, oh, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
Can you guys see me okay?
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
here.
we can.
Hi guys. I just dropped off my. Hi, I'm Dr. Yvonne de St. Croix, and I am all about providing students with equity and fidelity, like learning that reaches their potential and extends their learning potential, especially our traditionally marginalized student populations who don't have access to, say, gifted programs in their areas. And so I'm really looking at the funding as a way that we can provide professional development and opportunities for enrichments and extensions for all students, especially our traditionally marginalized, high-performing students with higher performing quality curricula that meets their readiness, interest, and learning styles. yeah, I'm really excited about it, guys, and I'm glad to be here finally. Hi. So that's what my
Thank you,
comment
Dr.
was.
St. Croix. As you know, like the first battle on Zoom is, can I get into the breakout room, right? Am I
Yes,
on the
yes.
Zoom line I'm supposed to be on? So thank you so much for bringing that into the space, really
Thank
looking
you.
at a focus on rigor for our marginalized populations and really working aggressively to add enrichment opportunities and extended learning opportunities. So thank you so
Yes,
much,
ma'am.
Dr.
Yes,
D.
ma'am.
All right. Next up, Barbara, please unmute and bring your voice into the space.
Hi, thanks for having us here today. Melissa and I are part of the Connecticut Association of School Librarians, who has partnered with the Department of Ed in Connecticut very early in the COVID experience to help provide resources to districts that didn't have school libraries or school librarians. And it's interesting to piggyback off of the last two things that were said. A school library provides opportunities for enrichment to those who are marginalized or higher thinking opportunities. And what we found, and in working directly with the Waterbury librarians, in fact, we did a PD for Waterbury librarians on how to transition their teachers from an at-home learning experience to a more blended learning experience. The districts who need that opportunity the most are urban districts, are free and reduced lunch districts. They have had to make a choice to close their school libraries because of funding or the lack thereof. They've cut librarians or split a single librarian between 3 and 4 elementary schools. And I will advocate for school libraries day and night that they are places of social and emotional learning. They are places where everyone can feel successful. They are places where students, no matter what you look like, what you sound like, what you wear, how you identify, you can find yourself in a school library and you can find yourself in a book and on the cover of a book. And so I would advocate that the Department of Ed make a priority of our learning entities to hire certified school librarians and make sure that every learner in the state of Connecticut has access to a librarian and a well-funded library.
Whoop, whoop. I second that.
Thank you so much for that. And I just want to tell you, while we are collecting your thoughts, we're also noticing when someone goes at Yvonne, I totally agree 100%. I second that. Those things are important to us. It places emphasis on your statements. So thank you, Barbara, for bringing that into the space for us, right? Really identifying that there's a critical need to look at the funding for certified school librarians, but really the expansion of resources, right? That really will help our students. I connected with what you said, no matter what you look like, you can find yourself in a book, right? You can connect to one of those resources. So thank you so much. Ray, definitely unmute yourself and bring your voice into the space, please.
Actually, I tried to put a comment into chat so as not to take up time in the conversation, but I don't know how to lower my hand. But basically, I was saying to you, Unique's comment that, the inequities with, having to build the plane and fly it at the same time when we all went virtual, is certainly something that affected urban communities and less resource communities more than others. So the idea of having more training for educators who can specialize in remote instruction and they become the exclusive remote instructor, I think is an important thing. It's one thing we've recognized is that the teachers who are asked to teach remote and in person at the same time can't really do both effectively, and that becomes a disservice to both students, and then that exacerbates the inequities. So I think to the degree the ESSER funds can be used to help train educators who could be exclusive remote instructors, that could be a good thing going forward. So there is a plan for students who, whether they're medically fragile or under quarantine, might have to be remote.
Absolutely right. And I really appreciate you bringing that into the space, right? How are we looking at our human resources, right? And aligning them appropriately to the tasks that are at hand. So we're going to take Andrea, because we're doing great on time, by the way. We're going to take Andrea. And if I haven't pronounced your name right, let me know, because that's important to me. Okay, Andrea, we're going to have you, and then we're going to move to the next question, okay? So definitely,
Okay,
tell us about an unidentified need that you've noticed.
Well, it's going to be brief. The reason I said mental health counselors is because my daughter was one of the 2020 graduates. She then graduated. At the very end, I had to push for her to get excited. Basically, she lost interest in school because she wasn't around her peers. She's more of a hands-on. To keep a story short so we can keep it moving, she did do a year of Fusitani with a few colleges, but now she feels like she wants to drop out because she feels like they got cheated out of their graduation. They've got cheated out of a lot. Now everything is going on with 2021, so she's not really fully there yet. And I know for my daughter, she knows I can be judgmental, so she would prefer to speak to someone outside of me, basically. So that's why I'm more pushing the mental health issue, and I can still see that she's going through it. So that was my little thing with the mental health issue. That seems to be a problem with the kids from 2020. Like, they don't know which direction to go in because they haven't really had no direction. And like, all parents are not here like I am. So that was really my basic information for the mental health. So I just wanted to elaborate why I said mental health.
And we really appreciate you bringing that into the space, Andrea, right? Because, you know, let's face it, yeah, there's a very unique situation that happened in this past year. And some kids who worked so hard for that milestone, right? They have a kind of like a lack of engagement. It's kind of like, this was all for what, right? And so we are noticing that with our kids. It's impacting their, you know, their perspectives of self. So definitely thank you for bringing that into the space. And absolutely, what are we doing to support our kiddos with behavioral and mental health challenges, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a disability for it to be a concern. So thank you for bringing that into the space, Andrea. So I think we're ready for the next slide, SERC team. All right, so we talked about safely reopening the schools and sustaining their safe operations. And so far, CSDE has been able to prioritize keeping schools open, right? We heard our former commissioner, right? He's keeping families as whole as long as possible, but also he pushed for us to return back to school. We also noticed that they created a suite of resources, tools, and guidance to help districts, families, and communities. They maintain data on various learning models through the CSDE's portal and EdSite, which I thought was phenomenal to be able to hover your mouse over a city or a school and notice what some of their successes and some of their challenges were in terms of student attendance. And they've established that in-person learning priority for this upcoming school year. So as you think about the things that already are in place, how might CSDE best support school districts in sustaining their safe operations and preparing for our return in fall 2021? You can answer this question by putting the number 2 next to your response and then putting your answer. And SERC team, I'm remembering that I'm saving my chat. Making sure we intentionally do that so we can get all of this good information. And also I want to encourage you that as you put in your answers, let's say you've already answered your number 2 and you notice something that one of our peers have said, definitely draw attention to that. You can respond to their comments by saying @Ray, @Marnie, @Andrea, and add more attention to the comments that they've left in the space. So again, what do we think about the role of CSDE to really support the school districts in their safe operations and their preparations for reopening this fall? Also reminding you that if you don't have a comment, you could also put number 2, no comment. And I just want to say, by the way, SERC team, I love this group. I could stay for another hour. I love when you have a good dynamic in the group. All right, so I have 3 responses so far. We are a quarter of the way there. And remember, your response doesn't have to be perfect. Exactly how you mean it is exactly how you can put it into the chat. All right, 30% there, keep them coming. Almost at 50%. %, keep them coming. Almost at 80%. Yep, I already hear the little one making demands out there. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're at roughly 8 out of 12, just waiting for a couple more. At 90%. I think right now, if you are someone who would like to bring your voice into the space, you could do that by raising your hand using the Zoom reaction feature.
I have a question, Tanya. Somebody, Bonnie has said, assure support for staff and subs. Maybe you could clarify that, Bonnie, what do you mean by supports? Because supports can take many different kinds of forms. So if you could be a little bit more specific and tell us what kind of supports you are envisioning.
Absolutely, that is a great, thank you so much for that attention to detail, Smita. Bonnie, you can do that in the chat box. You don't have to unmute, or you can unmute if that's better. Whatever works best for you. You can just say add on to 2. Go ahead, Bonnie.
No, I type so slowly. It's easier if I say it. Is that okay?
Please,
Okay.
absolutely. We
No.
love having your voice in the space.
I think that no one expected the pandemic and trying to do 2 things at once, in person and remote teaching. So it was quite a thing to throw at our teachers and the children, but there were never subs. There were not enough subs. That was a kind of a crazy thing. And in any situation, it kind of interrupts what you've got going in the form of teaching and learning. As far as support, I don't know if I mean support staff in terms of aides or all those other things. I don't know what's going on in the schools. I've been retired for quite a while, but I did teach in a program in the Orange school systems for 30 years. It was foreign language in the elementary school. And it put me in everyone's classroom every day. So I saw the full range of teaching and what happens when, someone isn't there to assist with a particular program or children in the classroom, whether they were, special needs or even those who are in the gifted program that, as a matter of fact, a lot of what goes on in the gifted program, if it were brought to everyone, could just juice up teaching so immensely from what it's been. But I think that, they were getting high school kids in. It was almost like running a study hall. to have someone there with the children. And I mean, we were all caught totally unawares by this, but that's really important. I mean, in just normal school years, sometimes if someone is missing from a course and you've had a long-term sub for 2 months, I sometimes question the capability of the sub put in charge of a math class when they don't have a math background, or, you know, it's a problem. I don't know, that's what I was just thinking, that you're working along and you're trying so hard to make it work. We've been up against so much this year. And then if for any reason, if the teacher's sick or there's been contact tracing or whatever, hopefully everybody's going to be a lot healthier in the fall. And children are now being vaccinated, that, you know, with keeping the HVAC systems going and everything, and the measures that have been going on in our schools, we won't be, you know, facing the things that we faced this fall. I mean, it was just an incredible year. I don't know. That's what.
Thank you for that, Bonnie. Thank you so much. Definitely thinking about what have we learned in this past year, right? So when we think about human resources, it's not just the ones that are currently like on staff, on payroll, but how do we continue that learning when there is a change? It could be a change of learning environments, right? Or it could be an absence of a teacher. Thank you so much for bringing that into the space, Bonnie. And thank you, Smita, for noticing that. I also see Unique. Would you like to unmute and bring your voice into the space?
Sure. I couldn't make a comment because I was driving. So one of the things, like reopening and with this pandemic, I mean, it really just showed on a whole nationally in the state of Connecticut how when it comes to budgeting, that every time the school system, the Department of Education, they're always being cut. Positions are being cut. Certain things are being cut. So now we see why that's so detrimental to really keep the funding and increase funding for the education system. We're reopening school. I'm concerned. I have a child, my youngest, has a heart problem. So he's more medically comprised. And then, you know, I worry about the cleanliness in the school system. So if we could have funding to hire more maintainer staff. I mean, you have one maintainer responsible for 3 locations. That's unacceptable. And that's not realistic to say that the schools are going to be, you know, sanitized and safe for students or teachers or any of the staff. I mean, we really got to look at increasing back staffing and making sure that of the school system, whether it's public, urban, or wherever, making sure that we have enough staffing and enough staff to maintain the ratio or the lower ratio, because I mean, it's a loss for students and the teachers. It's not fair for one teacher to have a class load of 25 children. There's no way that teacher could, you know, do their job effectively, and for the students to learn. So, you know, I just hope that funding could go towards that.
Definitely. So how are we going to look at our staffing in the next year, right? We've been lean or bare bones for a little while. So how are we going to do it in a way that we're able to maintain ratios that keep kids safe? Absolutely. Thank you, Yonique, for bringing that into the space. SERC team, are we ready for the 3rd question? If I don't see anyone else. I don't see anyone else that has their hand raised, but I'm just going to go and scroll through my screen just in case you have a physical hand raised. All right. SERC team, I'm ready for the 3rd question. All right, so we talk about maximizing state level funds to support students, right? And so far, CSDE has been able to allocate $11 million of the ARP ESSER in the form of summer programming grants, right? Hold on, my Apple Watch is reminding me it's dinner time. All right, we also noticed that they were able to plan and provide statewide access to resources for the core subject areas, ELA and math. We also noticed that they were able to consider how their funding could expand comprehensive after-school programs to provide additional social, mental, emotional, and health supports. So now let's think about this. What ideas do you have to address the academic impact of lost instructional time, provide summer learning and enrichment programs, and provide comprehensive after-school programs, right? So what are some of your ideas about how we can do this creatively? And think about, what does the support look like? How might it address those vulnerable students we talked about? And if it serves students who may have been the most disengaged this year? I know we talked about one very close family case earlier in our conversation, but how will it serve students who are becoming disengaged in this past year? And for those of you who are not educators, we define disengagement in terms of students who are infrequently coming to school or have completely checked out, right? Or showing signs that they're beginning to check out. So that's our disengaged youth population. So you can answer this question by putting the number 3 and then add your response. And as usual, once we get to that beautiful number of 12 responses, we're gonna have you unmute and bring your voices into the space. Sarah, I just want to do a check on time. How are we doing with time?
We're doing really well. And also, I think we lost a participant somewhere along the way. So I think our magic number is 11 now.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Actually, yep. No,
So that's
actually,
good to-
our number is 10.
Okay, thank you for that. So our magic number is 10. That helps as I'm figuring out the percentages, right? Because I'm like totally math. Thank you so much, Marnie. So let's bring them into the space. We are at 20%. Let's keep them coming.
So when Dani talked about disengage, I think we should also talk about students who don't come online, even though they have the device at home. There are many students whose stories we've heard that they are not engaged in distance learning. They don't come to the class, even though they have all the resources. So how do we engage those students as well?
Absolutely, Smita, definitely. We are at 40%. The number 10 actually helps when you're trying to do the percentages. So we're at 40%, keep them coming. Right, and I know it was a big, meaty question. So you don't have to answer all of it. You can just think about some parts of it, whatever really resonates with you. Almost at 50%. %. And remember, I did notice one of my friends did it a little bit earlier. Also, if this question doesn't speak to you and you don't have feedback to provide, you can also put number 3, no comment. %, keep them coming. Almost there. I think that was 70%. I think Barbara snuck her response in there on me. Hold on.
Barbara's good at sneaking in things, just saying.
And I thank you so much for that, Melissa. I'm going to keep my eye on Barbara now. I love it. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just waiting on 2 more. So if you know who it is, give them that hunch with your eyes, like we're waiting on you. Keep them coming. We're at 80%. And also, if you've already had the opportunity to go, you might definitely, and put your thought into the chat, you might want to consider, you know, if you would like to raise your hand and elaborate on something. SERC team, I'm saving my chat. Melissa, is that a joke? No? Okay. I wasn't sure if this was our moment of inserting a joke.
No, just the idea.
No,
that,
they just sit there. Nobody checks out a book during the summer. They just sit there and collect mold and dust.
I know, and if there was funding to like
horrible.
bring in not even only the librarian, but other volunteers or people who are, you know, able, like we have a whole collection, like have days where kids can come and use our collection and have events, and there's so many possibilities if people think creatively. I do check out books for the summer. Like I let my middle schoolers take as many as they want. And I just really hope they bring them back. So then there needs to be funding for like book budgets for all those books that maybe don't return, but they're in good hands, hopefully. But yeah, there's just so many creative solutions to the book access issue, which is near and dear to my heart for all kids everywhere.
Thank you for that. And I'm just waiting on 2 more. So if you happen to be one of those 2 that didn't put a response into the chat yet, and you're just thinking, I don't know what I want to say, Bonnie, I'm also hunching you because I know you said you were struggling with the chat a little bit. If you need to bring your voice into the space because that works better for you, just unmute and let me know.
You're muted, Bonnie, you're muted.
No, I'm reading what people are saying and I don't want to reiterate things, but this is totally voluntary on the part of the students to participate in these summer programs, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, I would definitely, yes.
No, I mean, and so the idea, the most important thing is to motivate them to become involved. And if they want to be, that's half the battle. And then all these wonderful things that people are suggesting, whether it's the books or, you know, arts programs and things, you know, will carry it the rest of the way.
Yes, to your point, we're not looking at an extended year. This is
Okay.
really looking at additional learning opportunities.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Maybe that's got to be made clear. And maybe sometimes
Yeah.
there's some kind of a muddied line between children thinking they're going to summer school as opposed to going to enrichment programs over the summer where you're trying to bring some academic things in through the back door, but making it fun. And I mean, I know when I went into classrooms to teach a foreign language, many times I interrupted a program because my time was in the room and then out again. And, you know, if students were really engaged with me, they didn't want me to leave. So it's a matter of really hooking them in with something that they really enjoy and maybe giving them some kind of control within the framework that you're really controlling, but letting them develop the direction they want to go in and then working the academics in with it.
So I'm hearing a lot of things from you. I'm hearing,
you know?
go ahead. I'm sorry, there was a lot.
No,
Go
I was
ahead,
just going to say, then they really own it if they're developing it. It's like saying, here, write a play, and then you can perform it instead of saying, we're going to do this play. And so now they're all involved and crafting something that's really theirs and that they're proud of. And it becomes very exciting. I mean, it's great.
Definitely. Thank you for bringing that into the space. So really looking at how are we messaging, right, about this, these additional learning opportunities, that it's not an extended year, that these are other opportunities for our students to learn and grow, but also how are we leaning into students' interest and allowing them to lead their learning, whether it is project-based learning or other opportunities to innovate, right, and create.
One thing that always worked well for me too is using the kids as resources and having whatever like a second grade did go up to the 6th grade and show, and the older students were amazed at what the little ones could do, and then they would reciprocate. So you've got everybody working that way. It's like a mutual admiration society too. So they're getting acknowledgement of what they've done and the respect for what they've created, whether they're little guys or older students. And so I don't know, that was a very exciting thing, you know, to work into teaching. The kids can be your
Absolutely.
best resource. So, and if they have fun, just to have that first year impactful. So it's so much fun that the word is out, just like they drag along the old idea that it's summer school, and when it's just not. So you really have to convince them that it's very different. And
Yes,
I don't know.
absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that into the space, Bonnie. I noticed that Yvonne, Dr. St. Croix, you have your hand up. Would you like to unmute and bring your voice into the space?
Yes, thank you for inviting me in. I love the idea of creating enrichment programs that have a connection to the student's interest, readiness, and learning style. And one way that I've found great success with that is through supporting teacher buy-in in those programs by surveying teachers to find out what they would be interested in providing as an enrichment or extension, and then surveying the students, uniting those passions. And that way I'm growing my teachers' potential and their feelings of social emotional well-being, as well as my students that are now in a small group with those students. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Dr. St. Croix. And I'm seeing your peers echo you, right? Interest is key. Focus on student-centered. Tamara, I see that you have your hand raised. Would you like to unmute and bring your voice into the space?
Sure, thank you. It's funny, when you mentioned about messaging, the minute we see learning loss, what do we all think? And if you asked us to put in the chat, like, what does that mean? The minute, it would be like, first thing,
Let's do it.
intervention.
Put it in there. Put it in the chat. What does learning loss mean to you? Do it. Do it. I like that, Tamara.
Yeah.
I'm behind.
Yeah.
Keep it coming. What does learning loss mean to you when you see that? Because when we talked with Bonnie about the way that we're messaging this, right? I think that's going to really impact buy-in, right? Ray says learning loss means test scores and a deficit model.
You want to make it something very positive.
Go ahead, Tamara, you still got the floor.
Okay, good. Thank you. But in addition to that, was it really learning loss, or just that teaching didn't happen?
Exactly.
But immediately the story was negative toward the student. Oh, there's loss. No, just teaching stopped. And yeah, it's going to have an impact or a negative impact on students. And that might mean learning loss. It might not mean learning loss, but we all came into this with deficit thinking.
Right. Even catching up makes it sound like you've fallen behind somehow, and it puts pressure on you. You have to make it some like magic happening, something like really to draw them in and not even think about. I mean, like when I taught, a lot of it was so much fun, they forgot they were learning. I mean, we'd play games and the language got used. They just wanted to participate so badly. And so it's like switching bait. They're looking here, but you're really doing what you want to do. It's like putting zucchini in a chocolate cupcake, and you're giving them something healthy to eat, but they don't know it and they're enjoying it. And so, right.
Absolutely. All good points. And also let's keep in mind too, that sometimes some of this wording, like especially when it comes to learning loss, that's kind of almost the inherited language that's coming from the feds. And I know that SDE has really been working around the clock to really kind of switch that, like you said, into a positive way. And they're calling it learning acceleration and academic renewal, because SDE definitely agrees with you. I've been messaged that. They agree with you. You're on the right track. Melissa, is that a hand? I'm going to take you and then I'm going to go to the next question, okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of just like chime in on this, because I do think that idea of learning loss is a very heavy loaded phrase that has a lot of connotations, that it comes from various places. But like this whole situation, I was hopeful it would sort of change education. And it would give us the opportunity and the permission to really like shift. I don't want to use the word pivot because it's so overused, but just to like kind of shift our focus on this idea that what is education, what should learning look like, how should it feel, and just that idea that learning should be joyful. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it should be joyful. And I always, as a teacher and now as a librarian, I'm always asking myself, my students and my colleagues, who cares and so what? When they come to me with, I want to do this lesson, and I ask them, who cares and so what? Where are the bigger, like, is this authentic learning? Is this something that as a human who loves like to learn about different things, what am I going to do with whatever this is? And I feel like education as it's been is very subpar. And that's why I left the classroom and became the librarian, because I had a little more freedom and a little bit more, like I got the whole school that I was able to sort of influence, not just the 25 kiddos in front of me. And I think this idea of enrichment is for everybody. It's not just the kids who are maybe accelerating in their learning, because it's this idea of a deficit culture versus a strength-based culture. And all of our learners have their own strengths. And I think whatever we kind of talk about with this funding that is getting put into our states, I really hope it's looking at the joyful aspect of authentic learning where student choice is involved and they're making some of their own decisions and it's joyful. So I don't know, I could talk for a long time about this, but that sort of is kind of like in a nutshell what I'm hoping some of this will kind of come, will help us do in certain systems.
Absolutely. And thank you for the final word on that. Really looking for opportunities for joyful learning. And I'm also hearing academic rigor that's personalized, right? So what academic rigor looks like for me, LaTanya, may be different from Smita, may be different from Sarah. Thank you for that. All right, SERC team, I think we're ready for the next question. All right, so this is really about supporting school districts here, right? So when we look at supporting LEAs in a planning for and addressing the opportunity to meet students' needs, CSDE's approach so far has been that they've provided guidance or a roadmap to districts through setting state level priorities and publishing guidance documents. They've supported districts by providing ample technical support from a variety of sources. And they've engaged in a webinar, I would say multiple webinars and multiple communications with school districts on their development of their local school district plans. And so as we think about the work that's already been done by our state leaders, how might you want CSDE to support districts in developing high quality plans for their use of the ARP ESSER funds, right? So what kind of role could CSDE play in supporting the development of those plans at the district level? And when you answer this question, I already see, thank you so much, Marnie, for modeling. You can do just as Marnie did. You can put number 4 and then add your response. And I love how you are all just like emphasizing one another's comments by putting the @ in the person's names. We really do appreciate that. And also remember, as we saw before, that if this is not a question that speaks to you and you don't have a comment, you could just put number 4, no comment. Sarah, how are we doing on time? Okay. I'm trying to avoid the look from Sarah, because when Sarah gives me the look, that means I've bird walked too long. That's why we're such a great team. All right, so keep them coming. We're actually at 10%. Sarah, are we back up to 11 participants again? Did I see we're at 16? Yeah. Okay, so it's really like 9%, guys. But keep them coming. Keep those answers coming. Number 4 in your response. Oh, this is so cool. The Apple Watch is telling me all my friends who are working out right now. Trying to make me look bad. I'll be nice. There we go. Keep them coming. Close to 20%. I love that, Melissa. I'm not sure, but I second Barb's comment. That works too. 1, 2, 3. Close to 30%. I think my kids are singing Earth, Wind, and Fire out there.
I want to say that's good parenting.
It actually is.
Now I have September in my mind.
Absolutely. The
yeah.
classics. I mean, you know.
Yeah, we have a couple albums that we use to get them excited when we would go on our pandemic rides to nowhere. It would be like, we'd start with Earth, Wind, and Fire, but when we wanted them to go to sleep, it was the best of Luther Vandross. So yeah, we try as much as possible. And that's cool, right? What about that? The gift of family love during the pandemic. Finding ways to stay close to those that we couldn't be close with. And those that were in the bubble with us, we just loved on them harder, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're doing good. We're almost at 90%. And we're doing well on our time. So we're able to, my hope is if we can get to that final question, we can all put our answers in and all give a final word, if possible, if you're interested and feeling courageous to bring your voice into the space. Almost there. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just waiting on one more. How are we doing, Bonnie?
But I sent one in.
You did? Oh my goodness. I was looking for you. I was like, oh man, where's my Bonnie?
All right. To copy something that I've used for years and years, even retired, I'm on it, a national listserv. So we could do one within the state for all the districts where teachers can get on and share ideas, state the problem they have, and everybody jumps on and offers advice. So I helped a lot of new students who didn't have any ideas of how to go about teaching a certain unit on the family or whatever. And, you know, it was nice to know that the support was out there.
Yeah. And what power is that? A peer mentoring model, right?
Incredible.
For educators.
Because
Castle has one, the librarians. We have a very large group, and you don't have to be a member of Castle to like just subscribe to the listserv. And
Wow.
oh my gosh, it's the most powerful thing. Every day somebody puts a question up, and there's like immediately like 3 to 5 responses like right away, and then they grow. So I think a listserv is a very powerful way to network and communicate with people that aren't close to you.
Exactly. Teachers are so willing to share, and they'll share their successes as well as their failures. So you skip over 3 steps and get to the, to the end result without falling into those areas.
Growing pains, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's terrific, because the framework can be the same for everybody, but what you fill it in with is different. You have different students, different setups, everything, different needs. And so you make it work for you. It's like building a better mousetrap, but for your own personal situation within your school district. And, maybe you want a facilitator to help get the word out to everybody. But as I said, when I often felt shortchanged because I didn't have my own classroom all the years I taught. But the fact that I was in everyone's room was such a learning experience to see how teachers taught, how they managed their classroom so much, how the children responded. So I was always learning. I was always put in a situation. And sometimes I got into a room that I couldn't use the board, and my whole lesson was on the board. What was I going to do? And you just fly by the seat of your pants. And some of my best lessons came out of desperation. To involve the children and do something quickly where I was going to have a visual and I couldn't have had. And so, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. And
Yes.
so I think we get bogged down in, we get something handed to us and it's like step A, B, C, D, and it makes us put our mind in a box. When we probably don't think that way anyway. And it kind of stifles our own creativity. I think a lot of creativity has been pushed out of teaching. A lot of it with teaching to test and all these things that have gone on in education for so long, that the way to get the kids is to draw them in with something that's fun and exciting. I mean, adults like to have fun too, right? We like to laugh and be relaxed. When we're under the gun, you know, we don't want to feel that way. We want to feel like it's okay. It's safe.
Absolutely. So just thinking about those ideas that Bonnie and Melissa brought into the space, how can we add to that, right? What do we see CSDE's role in really bringing that fun and that enjoyment, that opportunity for intervisitations, even if they're virtual? How do we see an opportunity to leverage some of those strategies as they support school districts to develop their ARP ESSER funds plans, their plans for ARP ESSER funds? I feel like that's a tongue twister. And we are at 100% in the chat. Bill, please bring your voice into the space.
I think, can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I have a little bit of a different perspective. I'm a little bit outside of the system. I'm have a learning center in Brookfield, and we have relationships with local districts and provide support services when needed, when the student can't be educated, you know, in the building. We've been doing that for 18 years, and I look at what's going on now, and I think this is an urgent need now. Students, you know, I get to see the students who have lost their focus and their interest more than maybe you guys do. But it seems like right now, like this summer, there has to be some kind of a program in place to get kids passionate and interested again, and rebuild the foundations that they need to move forward. I'm sure, you know, I've heard the term academic atrophy, and I kind of like that because it's what it kind of feels like, but I'm rambling a bit. My point is you're putting together the program for the state. I'm sure there's a role to reach out to organizations like mine and, you know, even larger ones, and say, this is what we need. We need programs to pick up on what has been said by a lot of folks in this call that aren't, okay, it's punishment time, you know, you need to do better in algebra, but to come up with programs that engage in reading and writing from a interesting and fun point of view, that are sneaking in the reps kids are going to need to be productive again in the classroom. So, you know, there you have outside of the buildings, these organizations and businesses that would love to help. And I just hope there's a way that, you know, we can provide you guys with that support. So when they come back to the school buildings in the fall, they're more prepared and more motivated.
Thank you, Bill, for bringing that into the space, you know, and just to reiterate what you're saying is that you see the role of CSDE in this process as really like that matchmaker, right? Helping them to reach into some of the community agencies, businesses, and partners to really strengthen that love for learning. And Dr. St. Croix, you say it so quickly, all three, when she's like, interest. Can you, where's Dr. St. Croix?
I'm right here.
Go ahead. You know the line, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. It is readiness, interest, and learning preference. Correct. And I completely agree with Bill. I was actually just thinking about apprenticeships with my local community in Region 15 today, and thinking what a great partnership and cultivation that would be. And, you know, when I was looking at this question, I began to think, what new perspectives can we bring, you know, from meeting these students' needs and enriching their skills that they intrinsically have held onto throughout this pandemic and they want to cultivate. I've seen so many students that have tailored these brand new skills as intrinsic parts of their lives or taken new risks in literacy learning, taken up new hobbies because they've had the time and the space and the passion to do so during the pandemic. And so I think that Bill's really on point. But yes, readiness, interest, and learning styles.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. St. Croix. Do we have anyone else who would like to add to the ideas in the space or introduce another before we move to question 5? You can unmute yourself or raise your hand, and I'm going to start doing my little scroll through my Hollywood squares, looking for the faces. All right, it seems like we're all set to move forward. SERC team, if we can go to question 5. And I am saving the chat. All right, so, and I think this has come out from some of the other comments we've already made. So really building on that, you know, how do we support the educator workforce? We know that CSDE's approach so far has really been about recognizing the need for qualified, right, and well-trained educator workforce. They've made allowances for daily or long-term substitutes and expanded pathways for paraeducators to become certified. And with their partnership with the Regional Education Center, Service Center Alliance, the RESC, they developed a mentoring team program. They've also invested in partnerships to inspire the younger generations of diverse populations to join our workforce. And so with that being said, and laying down the foundation of that groundwork, how might CSDE best support the educator workforce, right? So both in supporting the current educators to address the students' academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs, as well as how can they support the recruitment of a diverse pool of new educators to fill vacancies caused by the pandemic, right? So it's almost a two-part question. So you can answer this question by putting number 5 into the chat box and adding your response. And then my goal, I hope, because I think that time is allowing for us. Yes, Sarah, if everyone would like to give us final words in the space on this question or another one from earlier, we would greatly appreciate that. So let's get these comments rolling in. And also remember, if this question doesn't resonate with you, you don't have area of expertise or even inquiries about it, you can also put number 5, no comment. Thank you, Marnie, for leading us and modeling the responses. So I'm looking at my numbers. Sarah, are we still at 11 participants? Yep, because I think we are a little bit closer to 20%. Keep them coming. All right, we got 3 responses. Keep them coming. We're closer to 30%.
Hi, I'm on this Zoom meeting.
4 responses.
I'm getting there.
1, 2, 3,
No, I'm
4
sorry.
responses. Keep them coming, almost at 50%. I appreciate that emphasis on Marnie's comment. Two, 3. Keep them coming, almost at 50%. Yes, thank you for that emphasis. Keep the responses coming, almost at 50%. I'm going to put myself on mute because I'm not sure if you can hear my kids singing the closer I get to you. Yep, we've made it to the 50% mark. Keep those comments coming. Almost at 70%. Almost there. And I see so much love for Barbara's comment. I almost feel like she's got to open us up. Let's keep those responses coming. 70%. Thank you, Marnie. All of your comments, Barbara.
Yeah, I just think it was so funny, March, when all school districts pivoted, right, in about 3 weeks, and teachers were like, oh, you're teachers, you're amazing. And then in September, when they were like, oh, now go back to school. Oh, you want a desk shield? No, just go back to school. We went from it really felt awful. And I know that there's a lot of emphasis on making sure our kids are feeling successful and feeling welcome and making sure that everybody's mental health needs. But I really feel that it's a group effort. It's a whole school community effort. You can't forget the staff and students together are a social emotional unit. And if the staff is feeling stressed, if the staff is feeling overwhelmed, then that translates right to the students, and that's what the students are going to feel. And so we bring in lots of supports and lots of morning meetings for kids and building communities. But when we went into cohorts and you can't come out of your classroom all day, that isolation, it felt awful. And so I really worry about making sure we have these open and welcoming environments for new teachers, even if we're cohorted in the fall again, to make sure everybody's mental health and social and emotional well-being is taking into consideration when we go back to school in the fall.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that into the space, Barbara, because that's a part of supporting the whole school community, but definitely the educator workforce. And I think we are at 10 responses, so I'm just waiting for one more. So if you know who that person is, you hunch them with your eye. We are waiting for you. And there's a lot of your peers that are really echoing and emphasizing your comments, which is good. SERC team, I'm saving my chat. And I'm just going to go back because I got very distracted listening to Barbara. I'm just going to go back and see if I got all 11 of my responses here. And thank you, Ray, for separating it with the part A and the part B. Yep, because Tamara got us at 10. Just waiting for one more. We're just gonna wait one more minute and then let's have more voices in the space. And if you're someone who doesn't have a new idea, you could put 5, no comment, and continue to respond to your peers. That works well too. And if you've already had a chance to go, you can raise your hand and let us know that you might want to bring your voice into the space next. Yep.
Hi,
All right.
thank you.
So,
This
go
kind
ahead,
of
Barney.
dovetails, thank you. It dovetails with a few other comments that I started to type and then didn't paste in, but a couple of questions back. There were discussions around supports for students, particularly around mental emotional well-being. And a lot of research is coming out showing that when parents are actually more educated around mental and emotional well-being, to the tune of getting counseling themselves, it has a very significant effect on children's anxiety, even with respect to pandemic anxiety. And so similarly, for educators, having them trained in these notions of, mental self-care, prevention strategies. I'm in public health and an educator, and a distance educator as well, and psychologist. And my work is around prevention of mental health issues. And what we're really finding is that teaching people to engage in kind of mental wellness strategies and physical health strategies is extremely beneficial in reducing the stress response and reducing the likelihood of depression, anxiety, and stress, all of the things that we're seeing in the pandemic and in other kind of stressful situations. But even our data are showing that even during the COVID crisis beginning in April of last year, engagement in really behavioral strategies, the kinds of things that educators already know how to do, but kind of turning that lens to themselves is very effective in protecting and promoting their own mental well-being, which then of course has trickle-down effects in the communities and students we serve. So I kind of think of teachers as being sort of professional parents in that respect, and to the extent that we can provide, support services to teachers is, in my opinion, one of the most critical things that we can do for the students. Yeah, that's all. So
thank you for participating and bringing your voice into the space, Marnie. Definitely have enjoyed you this evening. Tamara, I see your hand is raised. You want to unmute and bring your voice into the space?
Thank you. First, I wanted to build on Marnie's comment about mental health. And I know, with training and advertising, and I think about the communities that are most hard hit with regards to mental health issues. And typically they don't know that they have mental health issues. It's like they don't know what they don't know. And so thinking about what does that messaging look like, being more concrete about symptoms and experience, as opposed to like when we say stress, well, what is that? Because some people, they are carrying so much stress, they don't even realize that their bodies are reacting to it. So that was just a comment I had about that. And then my second comment is just going back to recruitment of teachers. One of the things that I think that I've noticed was that when it came to COVID, in terms of jobs, in the districts, your support staff, your interventionists were hit the hardest, meaning like they lost their jobs or they decreased the size in number. And so those positions most likely in some places where your diversity existed. And so once that impact happened, then you didn't have your diversity. So just thinking about directing funds to draw that connection for districts to actually sponsor, their community partners and their connections to diverse communities to certification.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to have you in the space this evening, Tamara. Bill, you're up next. Please unmute and bring your voice into the space.
Sure. I just want to build on that because I wonder how parents can be made more aware of what they're seeing at home. I get to talk to parents who have ninth graders who have stopped paying attention, and their comment to me is, yeah, well, they're 14, they're mature enough, they should just suck it up. And that obviously is a lack of education on their part to what they're actually looking at. And of course, everybody wants to help their kids, but I'm not sure that they have the resources to know where to look or what they're looking at. I don't know exactly how you can educate that, provide that information more clearly, but without a parent reaching out for help for their kids, a lot of these other discussions, are not going to work.
Absolutely. And it has been a pleasure to have you in the space this evening, Bill. And I saw Melissa also has to hop off. So we appreciate you as well, Melissa. Who's next and would like to unmute and bring their voice into the space, add on to some ideas we've heard, talk about some ideas we haven't discussed yet. You can do so by raising your hand or just unmuting your mic. I'm looking across my screen. I think Marnie, yes, I saw your hand raised, Marnie.
Okay, I don't want to take the floor if anybody else is waiting. And I know I've kind of beating the same drum over and over again, but I'm also assuming that this is being recorded for some kind of data collection and analysis. So I think it's
This is
important.
correct.
Excellent. Yes. Simply the very critical need for an educational option next year. Ever since Governor Lamont's announcement that remote education would not be required of districts, districts have now, including the one in which I reside and have a young child, have declared that there will be no remote option provided next year, which essentially means that many of these children will need to go truant because the school setting will not be safe because the vaccine will not be available for elementary age children before the start of school next year. And, you know, we're just trying to problem solve around this, but the district has said no funding will be allocated to remote education. And so we are left without any resource, and many families will not be able, you know, don't have they're not educators. They don't have the ability to homeschool. They don't have the finances to homeschool. And many of them are also critically ill. And so the idea of someone going through chemotherapy and radiation, also trying to homeschool a child, while being underemployed and suffering all the financial strain that the pandemic has brought, is just something that, you know, a lot of eyes are kind of turning, you know, to me and my friends who are well enough to try to advocate, but we're really at a loss of what on earth we are to do. I'm not opposed to holding my child out of school for a year, but I'm pretty sure that's illegal. So I don't really know if discussions are occurring at the state level. If there are discussions of a regionalized remote option, these are not families that can afford private school. And, you know, what do we do when a public school option is not provided, a safe one? I mean, it really would be tantamount to a death sentence for many of these families.
I appreciate you bringing that parent perspective in the space, Marnie. You know, I've told you I'm a parent as well, but I think it also speaks to how the school districts are planning to use their workforce, right? And you really spoke to the continuum of options available to families and workers, right? Who might also share some of those concerns. So thank you so much for that, Marnie. And it has been a pleasure to have you in the space this evening.
Thank you.
Let's see, are there any others who haven't spoken, who would like to add some thoughts, or they've spoken already and they'd like to share some more? Ray, you have anything else you want to add? Yvonne, Yonique, Andrea? Please, if you're comfortable.
What Marnie I think what Marnie just kind of put into the room, you know, is an interesting challenge, and it raises so many issues of equity. You know, if we need to have a remote option and every district's trying to recreate the wheel, we know that there's going to be inequities across the districts. If we contract out to Pearson or what's the other one, K-12, then we're sending, you know, a lot of money to private operators with no public oversight for the education of our children. So this idea of, you know, some sort of state option for virtual learning, I think is something that is being considered. The question is, how do you do it? I mean, I know we have Charter Oak State College that provides credit recovery online and has developed a high school in the past online. So we have the expertise to do it, you know, sort of like a public school, but I don't know if that's going to come together quickly enough. And I do fear that somehow we're going to go down this road of remote instruction in a way that's, you know, going to be a little bit like the Wild West. And we just know that, and people put in the chat earlier, students, only a small portion of students really do well in that environment. And how do you ensure that they have the support at home to persist, and that they're the type of student that can do well in that environment? I worry that the floodgates open for virtual learning for students, that we're going to have many, many more kids fall through the cracks. And yes, some will thrive, and some will thrive who don't thrive in the public schools, but it's a very precarious situation, I think. I think we need to approach it, you know, with teachers and administrators and people who are experts in this all together, trying to figure out these different pieces.
Thank you so much.
And there's the technological access too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I noticed there was a lag on my end, so if I interrupt you, my apologies.
That's the world we live in right now, right?
So let's see, do we have any others? Bonnie, do you have some other things you want to bring into the space?
Tanya, there's a couple people that have their hands up. So Barbara.
Oh, there are? I don't
see
them. Go ahead, you got it.
I didn't want to interrupt. I wanted to circle back to the disengaged students and something that was occurring to me, and even for our teachers, like in supporting our staff. In my district, we had a certain number of disengaged students because they became the caregivers, because their parents or their guardians had to go to work. They became disengaged. The older students became disengaged from their schoolwork and their school experience because they were caregivers for younger, maybe non-school age children or younger children who were in school, and they were facilitating their learning at home. And that we did have a significant number of older children who became disengaged for that reason. And then I know that there was a temporary agreement between school districts. So I work in a different district in which I live, but they let me, if I wanted to, I could bring my children into my school district to help align schedules and busing and timing. And I'm just wondering, in order to support staff and families, if something could be done with childcare, or that agreement between school districts, instead of paying tuition for me to bring my kid to my district in order to make transportation or the calendar line up. Those are two different issues, I think. I think one is a childcare issue for at-home learners who parents need to work. That means they still need to work. And maybe they don't have the luxury of working from home anymore. So how do we address that kind of a family? How do we support that family? And then how do we support our teachers' families when childcare for teachers becomes a problem, or and the schedules don't line up, or you've got immunocompromised teachers who need. So I just think there are some childcare issues that I don't know if the State Department of Ed is the right place for that to be coming from, but I think this recovery money is the right place to make it happen.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you bringing it. It's like peeling back an onion, right? We can't say educators and only think about the students that exist in the classroom. We have to think about that family layer too, that self-care piece and that self-awareness of what their needs are. So thank you so much for bringing that into the space. Sarah, help me, because I'm not seeing my hands raised like I did see before. So is that Dr. St. Croix? Is that who you see?
Yes.
Go ahead, Yvonne. You can unmute and bring your voice into the space.
Thank you for inviting me in. I was thinking about the conversation about our immune compromised students and thinking deeper on that, flexible opportunities for educators to meet with those students either remotely or in person would be a viable option and direction I would like to see the state go, because certainly students that not all students should return to the traditional environment that's going to be present in the fall. And it might be, well, no, it would be useful to ask the LEAs if the population of teachers had any interest in becoming a liaison for the different student populations the communities serve. So there might be an educator who wanted to focus with the students who were immune compromised, who might not be back. I'm also thinking about, those students that have had learning deficits because they've been the primary caretakers. There's going to be a need to say, provide resources for learning gaps that have occurred not because of the child's direct motivations, but because of the living environment that the student was potentially a part of and the role that they played in that. And so I think that by asking the LEAs what flexible learning options they are seeing the districts not offer that could be offered, I think that that would be a great way to go. And I do, as an educator and a parent, the cost of tuitions moving students from place to place has been prohibitive for my family as an educator, just to balance out that calendar. I think that is a great suggestion to bring to the table. I'm most concerned about our EL populations being served as well. And because of the way in which, when you're looking at a whole school district and you're bringing back a whole school population, and I think about who are my students that are my most diverse and most dynamic, but might have the most need, I think that this would be a unique time to bring in more times for apprenticeship learning, kinesthetic-based learning, and again, reaching the students at the skills that they've acquired during this time of the pandemic, because many haven't just sat around doing nothing. They cultivated new skills that were not recognized in their traditional learning environment. And if the teachers could access those learning perspectives, then that will broaden and strengthen the learning community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Yvonne, Dr. St. Croix, you know, we really appreciate you being in this space and all of you this evening. We have a couple minutes left. If there's a voice that we haven't heard from yet, please unmute. We just, again, this is our thank you slide. Thank you, SERC team. I don't see anyone else's hand raised. Do you, Sarah?
I don't see anyone else's hand raised, and I did want to point people to, I did drop in the chat again, the, as promised, the form that you can submit any other ideas that you may have if you're, as you're driving home tonight or wandering around the yard in this beautiful evening. If something else comes to you that you'd like to share, you can use that. If you have questions or things that came up tonight that you didn't have a chance to, we're really sort of wrestling with questions necessarily, but if you had a specific question that you wanted the department to respond to, you can use that email address, and I am going to drop those in one more time just so that everybody has really close access to them. And again, thank you so much for your comments this evening. I know I was typing away furiously, and I know some of our colleagues were gathering information furiously as well. So very much appreciate you sharing your thoughts and experiences.
And really developing community with us, right? I feel like I've known some of you forever. And I'm going to make sure I aggressively take advantage of my child's school library this summer. I promise you, this will happen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's very good.
And thank your Black unicorns for their performances in the background too. We really appreciated that.
Thank you all. It was extremely helpful.
Thank you all. Thank
really
you all for
appreciate
joining
it.
us.
Thank you.
Nice to
Thanks.
meet
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye. Oh, I'm
Thank
just
you,
going to grab Ray's
Latanya.
comment quickly. Hang on. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Latanya, Sarah, and Smita.
No problem.
Okay, there you go. All right, thanks so much, Ray. I just wanted to copy your last comment into my notes. So I appreciate it so much. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I think this group was awesome.
We were.
You guys are awesome.
We had a nice tripod approach. Smita was helping us out because I was counting comments, but Smita was like, all right, Bonnie, what did you mean by that? So that really helped too. And Sarah is doing her thing, typing in a blizzard. So this worked for us.
Thank you. It was very nice to hear everyone's perspectives and genuine feedback. It's really really appreciated. So thank you.
No
Yeah,
problem.
exceptional work team. Super good.
Excuse me, is tomorrow's session a continuation?
No, it's a
Same
replicate.
question.
Oh, it is a replicate. Okay.
I mean, it's
We'd love to
the
see
same
it,
idea.
Bonnie. You know that. You're
I mean,
welcome back to come.
You can
on.
certainly join again.
Oh, I don't know. I usually come up with my best ideas 24 hours later. I have to
Oh,
sleep on it.
No, so then come, you can
Feel
join us in the
free.
morning.
No,
Feel
but
free.
I think if I had a final statement, it would just be that we have to change the way everyone looks at teachers. We know that stock rose and fell with the pandemic. At one point, it was very high, and now it's kind of, settling back down where it was. To get people to go into the profession, in other cultures, teachers are really respected and honored. And maybe this sounds like it's coming in from way left field, but the most patriotic thing anybody can do is to educate the young. That's the next generation. Just because you've charged off into a battle with a gun and saved some lives doesn't make you a hero as much as standing there in a classroom and teaching the next generation. And I think if kids realize that they could contribute something to everybody, to the country, even by being the best student they could be, learning, like we've got to rethink the way we come at it. I mean, that's what, I don't know, I've thought about this a lot, and maybe it sounds corny, but I think there's really something to it. It's very, very basic, and doing your best, and that's a good reason why. Nobody else is going to care about what happens to our children but us. They don't care about our kids in Italy or Russia or anywhere else. I mean, what are we doing? And I mean, we've already blazed the trail to remote learning. Why is it such a problem that if it's needed, you fill the need? You do what you have to teach a child. They're, tactically, visually, auditorily, however you get into them with what you're trying to teach them. So why should that even be an issue? It's beyond me. I mean, maybe I'm very naive, but we know how to do it. So if that's what you need to do, because someone is homebound or whatever, as the professor said, you do it.
Yep, get them the access.
Bonnie, you
right?
have to come back tomorrow.
That's it. You have
I didn't sign up.
I will see you at 8:30 tomorrow.
I can't. I'm having a dumpster delivered. I've got to be.
Oh, I've done that. Fun,
I'd
right?
much rather be with you, let me tell you. Yeah.
Well, thank you
so much
again,
for your
Bonnie.
It was a
perspective,
pleasure
Bonnie.
meeting you all. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
So Sarah,
we
can
still
I
have-
email you my
I still-
notes? I've been taking notes too. Should I email them to you?
I'm sorry, was that question directed to me, Smita? I'm sorry.
It's Sarah.
Oh, okay.
Sarah, you've been taking notes, right?
Yes.
So can I email you my notes that I?
Yes.
Mine are in point form. They're not in sentences.
That's fine. Just
Thank you,
just send them to
Smita.
me right now, and I'll dump them into my notes.
We
Okay, I can do
appreciate
that.
it. I think we still have someone on.
Yeah, and I believe it or